Hello dear listener, please subscribe to our channel. Enjoy watching. You ever have that gut feeling that something's off? I mean, really off? Like the kind of feeling that sits deep in your stomach, twisting until you can't ignore it anymore? That's where I was, about a year ago. Rachel and I had been together for nearly a decade, married for 7 of those years, and for the most part, life was good, or so I thought. But then, it started. You know how it is, first it's subtle. She was coming home later than usual, talking about new deadlines at work, and she was on her phone constantly. It was like she couldn't put the damn thing down. And every time I walked into the room, she'd lock the screen or flip the phone face down. Weird, right? But I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband. So, I let it slide, figuring she was just stressed. Then there were the small changes in her appearance. Rachel had always been low maintenance, but all of a sudden, she was wearing new perfume. I didn't mind at first, it smelled great on her, but then I noticed she was dressing up for work events more often. She started getting her hair done, buying new outfits, and even wearing makeup to go to her so-called girls' nights. That's when I started feeling something was definitely wrong. It didn't sit right with me, and I knew I had to pay closer attention. One night, I casually asked her about it. We were sitting on the couch, half watching some reality show neither of us cared about. Everything okay at work? You've been staying late a lot recently. She barely looked up from her phone. Yeah, just some new projects coming in. You know how it is, she said, offering me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It was the first time I seriously considered that maybe something more was going on. But again, I brushed it off. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. We had a good thing going, and I wasn't going to wreck it over a gut feeling. That was until she told me about the work retreat. It was a Friday night when she mentioned it. I remember because we'd ordered takeout, and she brought it up halfway through dinner, almost casually, like she wasn't dropping a bomb. I've got this work retreat coming up next weekend, she said, swirling her wine in her glass like it was nothing. It's at this resort out by the lake. My boss is making the whole team go. Now, Rachel's job wasn't the kind that did weekend retreats. I knew that much. She worked in marketing at a small firm, and they barely had the budget for coffee, let alone a weekend getaway. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded and asked her about the details, playing it cool. Sounds nice. Where's it at? Oh, you know, that fancy place by Silver Lake. It's just for the weekend, Friday to Sunday. Right. A retreat, I said, and something clicked inside me. I knew, without a doubt, that she was lying. So, I did what any sane man would do. I hired a private investigator. I couldn't just confront her without proof, and I needed to know for sure. It felt like I was stepping into some sort of bad movie plot, but what else was I supposed to do? Trust her? No chance. Not after everything I'd noticed. 3 days later, the PI called me. Mr. Harris, I think you'll want to see this, he said, sounding almost apologetic. When I met him in his office, he laid out the evidence, photos, time-stamped locations, even video footage. Rachel wasn't working late or hanging out with friends, she was with some guy named Greg. He was the new sales rep at her firm, and from the looks of it, they were a lot more than just colleagues. The photos showed them leaving a hotel together, arms around each other, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. There were emails too, which the PI had managed to get his hands on. Love notes, plans to meet up, and talk about how excited they were for the retreat. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't angry yet, just numb. The anger would come later. Right then, all I could think was how long it had been going on and how I'd been completely in the dark. I didn't confront Rachel right away. I wanted to, believe me. I wanted to grab her and demand answers. But I knew I had to be smart about this. I couldn't just go in guns blazing without a plan. Over the next few days, I kept up the act. I pretended like everything was normal, like I didn't know she was sneaking around behind my back. I played the part of the loving husband while I started planning my revenge. The first step was financial. I wasn't about to let her take me for everything I had. So, I started moving money out of our joint accounts. I shifted funds, sold off some assets, and made sure everything was tucked away in a place she wouldn't find. If this was going to end, it was going to end on my terms. Next, I reached out to my lawyer, quietly filing the paperwork for a divorce. I made sure everything was in place so that when the time came, I could pull the trigger without hesitation. But that wasn't enough. No, I needed to hit them where it hurt. And that's when I started putting together my real plan. See, I wasn't just going to divorce her, I was going to make sure she and Greg paid for what they did. The week of the work retreat rolled around, and Rachel was packing her bags like everything was fine. She was excited, I could tell. She thought she was getting away with it. She even kissed me on the cheek before she left, saying, "I'll miss you. See you Sunday night." "Have fun," I said, forcing a smile. As soon as she was out the door, I grabbed my bag and headed to my car. But I wasn't following her. I already knew where she was going. No, I had a different destination in mind, Greg's house. Greg was married. Yeah, I know, ironic, right? The guy screwing around with my wife had a wife of his own. Her name was Lisa, and she was about to find out exactly what kind of man she was married to. I'd done my homework. Lisa was a sweet woman, too sweet for a guy like Greg. She had no idea what was going on, and I felt bad about shattering her world, but she needed to know. So, I knocked on her door. She answered with a warm smile that faded the moment I introduced myself and told her why I was there. I handed her the photos and emails the PI had given me. Watching her face change as she realized what was happening, it was heartbreaking. But I didn't have time for sympathy. "How long has this been going on?" she whispered, her hands shaking as she flipped through the photos. "Months," I said. "But I think it's been longer." Lisa was quiet for a moment, processing everything. Then, to my surprise, she squared her shoulders and looked me in the eye. "So, what are we going to do about it?" That's when I knew we were on the same page. We spent the next few days plotting. Lisa wasn't the meek, fragile woman I'd expected. She was furious, and she wanted revenge just as much as I did. Together, we came up with a plan that would leave Rachel and Greg reeling. The first step was social media. Lisa had access to Greg's accounts, and we used that to our advantage. We posted the photos of him and Rachel, tagging them both in a series of accidental uploads. The photos spread like wildfire. Their friends, family, and colleagues all saw the evidence of their affair. It was brutal, but it was only the beginning. Next, we made sure their jobs would be affected. Lisa sent the photos and emails to their respective HR departments, citing their company's strict policies against interoffice relationships. Within days, Rachel and Greg were both called into meetings. Rachel lost her job first. Her boss wasn't going to tolerate that kind of scandal. Greg wasn't far behind. But we weren't done yet. While Rachel and Greg were holed up at their luxury resort, thinking they were in the clear, I had movers at our house. I packed up all of Rachel's things, every piece of clothing, every piece of jewelry, all her personal stuff, and sent it to her parents' house with a note, "You can have her back." When Rachel finally called me on Sunday, she was hysterical. "Where's all my stuff?" she yelled. "What the hell is going on?" I didn't bother with explanations. "We're done, Rachel. I know everything. You'll hear from my lawyer tomorrow." She tried to plead, tried to explain, but I wasn't interested in hearing it. I hung up, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over me. Greg didn't fare any better. When he got home, Lisa was gone. She took the kids, the dog, and most of the furniture. She filed for divorce the next day, and Greg was left with nothing but an empty house and a shattered reputation. I'd like to say I felt bad, but I didn't. They made their choices, and now they had to live with the consequences. Do I regret it? Not at all. Rachel and Greg thought they could play us for fools, but in the end, we came out on top. I've never felt more free. I don't miss Rachel. In fact, I've moved on, and life is better than it's ever been. So, if you ever get that gut feeling that something's off, don't ignore it. Trust me, it might just save your life. If you leave a comment, tell us what you think about the story you heard. It's important to us and will help us find and tell stories that you find interesting. Thank you for watching us.